While watching my brother Ethan show off his new Jeep Cherokee around the neighborhood, I was counting the tips from my double shift at the corner bar. The scene perfectly summed up our family dynamic: him, the shining star who deserved everything; me, the shadow who barely got any crumbs of attention. "Your brother is going to be somebody in life," my dad used to say between sips of beer. "The best athlete the school ever saw. He's going to get a scholarship to any university." Ethan was 3 years older, but it was like he lived in another dimension. His photos covered the living room walls, his trophies filled the shelves, and his name came up in every family conversation. Meanwhile, I was working 6 nights a week serving drinks and trying to save up money for college. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. On the night I finally gathered the courage to talk about my academic plans, my dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Business administration? For what? You don't have the knack for business." "I've been saving up, but I need help with the tuition," I explained, showing him the acceptance letter from the state university. My mom stepped in. "Honey, we just bought Ethan a car. He needs transportation for practice. And besides, his college starts next year." "How about a student loan?" my dad suggested indifferently. "Ethan can't get distracted with debts, he needs to focus on sports." The next day, I woke up to the sound of Ethan getting the keys to his brand new Jeep. My request for college help wasn't even worth a used car, but my brother deserved a new vehicle because it was Ethan. Life went on like that until the call that changed everything. It was about Uncle Jack, my dad's younger brother, who'd been hospitalized with terminal cancer. We were never close. He lived isolated on a distant farm and rarely showed up at family gatherings. My dad always described him as the black sheep of the family, which maybe explains why I felt a strange connection with him. I visited him in the hospital alone. No one else cared enough to go. "You look like your dad when he was young," Uncle Jack said in a weak voice. Before he became what he is today. We talked for hours. I discovered that he, too, had been the family's black sheep, always in my dad's shadow, who was the favorite grandson of my grandparents. The story repeated itself across different generations. "I bought that farm to prove my worth," he confided between fits of cough. "It didn't work out as I hoped, but it was my place in the world." 3 weeks later, Uncle Jack passed away. To everyone's surprise, his will left the farm to me as the sole heir. When the lawyer read the document, my dad turned red with anger. "He's giving you the property? It must be some kind of revenge against me." At home, the storm continued. My mom kept insisting that I should sell the farm immediately and use the money for Ethan's college. My brother was already talking about how he'd invest in stocks. "The farm is practically worthless," my dad argued. "Unproductive land, old buildings. But it must be worth something because of the location. Ethan needs that money more than you do." For the first time in my life, I stood my ground. "It's my inheritance. Uncle Jack wanted it to be mine." "After everything we did for you," my mom shouted. "Is that how you repay us? What exactly did you do for me?" I asked calmly. The silence that followed was deafening. "If you're not going to help your brother, then you don't belong in this house anymore," my dad finally declared. 2 hours later, I was in my old car that I'd bought with my own money, heading for Uncle Jack's farm. I cried all along the way, not from sadness, but from a strange mix of fear and freedom. The property was exactly as my dad had described, remote, with worn-out structures and soil that seemed hostile to any kind of cultivation. In the first few days exploring, I discovered something that made the situation even worse. The farm was infested with rattlesnakes. They appeared around every corner, making it dangerous even to walk on the property. "Great," I murmured to myself. I inherited a nest of venomous snakes. Maybe my dad was right, after all. On a Sunday afternoon, the sun was beating down on the rural road asphalt when I noticed a silver Audi parked at the shoulder. A sophisticated-looking woman was trying to change a flat tire, visibly frustrated with the situation. Normally, I'd just keep driving after the turbulent weeks I'd been through, but something made me stop. "Need a hand?" I asked, pulling my beat-up car over beside hers. She turned around, wiping sweat from her forehead. With perfectly arranged black hair, clothes screaming professional success, and an unexpected relieved smile, she caught me off guard. "You be my savior," she said with a slight accent. "The roadside assistance app says it'll take 2 hours, and I have an important meeting in an hour." I changed the tire in 15 minutes while we chatted. Her name was Lily Zhong, an executive at an international pharmaceutical company. She was in the area to evaluate potential investments. "Let me thank you with a coffee," she insisted when I finished the repair. "I know a fantastic place in town." At the cafe, our conversation flowed naturally. Lily had a magnetic presence, switching from international business stories to curiosities about her life straddling two worlds, born in China and educated in the United States. "And you? What are you doing out here all alone in such a remote area?" she asked between sips of cappuccino. I hesitated, but ended up telling her about the farm, Uncle Jack, and the family fallout. Surprisingly, Lily didn't show pity, she only seemed genuinely interested. "An entire property of your own? Many people dream of that," she commented. "What's your plan for it?" "I don't have one yet. The soil isn't great for farming, the buildings need work, and there's one more thing." I paused. "The farm is infested with rattlesnakes." Instead of the horror I expected, I saw Lily's eyes light up. "Rattlesnakes? Really? How many would you say there are?" A bit confused by her enthusiasm, I described how the snakes seemed to be everywhere. Lily exchanged contact info with me before leaving for her meeting, promising to call soon. 3 days later, we met up with a reptile expert who confirmed the farm had one of the highest concentrations of rattlesnakes in the area, the result of decades without human interference and a perfect habitat for their breeding. In the following weeks, Lily started showing up at the farm frequently. We walked around the property, wearing proper boots, discussing possibilities while I learned more about her. She was the only child of a Chinese businessman, determined to build her own business legacy. Our connection deepened with every visit. In a month, we were already sharing dinners, childhood stories, and eventually our first kiss under the rural night sky. "I have to go back to Shanghai next week," Lily said one night as we watched the sunset from the porch. "Why don't you come with me? You could meet my family, get a glimpse of my world." The proposal caught me by surprise. "Go to China? I haven't even left the state." "Sometimes you need to step out of what's familiar to see the possibilities," she replied, interlocking her fingers with mine. "Maybe the solution for your farm is on the other side of the world." A week later, I was on a plane to Shanghai with just one bag and a freshly issued passport. The city overwhelmed me with its skyscrapers, bright lights, and constant crowds, a total contrast to the rural quiet I knew. Lily's parents welcomed me into their stylish apartment overlooking the Huangpu River. Her father, Mr. Zhong, was a man of few words, watching me with careful curiosity. Her mother made up for it with warm hospitality, serving dishes I'd never tasted before. "Lily told us about your farm," Mr. Zhong commented after dinner while we had tea. "Especially about the snakes." Surprised by their interest, I described what I considered my biggest problem. "In China, we wouldn't see it as a problem," he said with an enigmatic smile. "Tomorrow I want to show you something." The next morning, we drove 2 hours outside the city. We arrived at a facility that looked like a mix between a farm and a modern industrial installation. Employees in white lab coats moved between different buildings. "Welcome to Zhong Pharmaceutical Resources," Mr. Zhong announced proudly. What I saw in the next hours completely transformed my perspective. The problem of my rattlesnakes was actually the key to a potential fortune. Mr. Zhong's facility was dedicated to breeding venomous snakes, mostly Asian vipers, for multiple purposes: venom extraction for pharmaceutical research and antivenom production, skins for luxury goods, and meat for specialized culinary uses. Snake venom contains compounds used in medications for hypertension, chronic pain, and blood coagulation, he explained as we watched technicians carefully extract venom from vipers. A gram of processed venom can be worth thousands of dollars. In another section, artisans worked on snake skins to create luxury bags, wallets, and shoes. The market for authentic snakeskin products is growing yearly, especially when produced ethically. At our final stop, we visited an exclusive restaurant inside the facility where tourists and business people sampled gourmet dishes prepared with snake meat. "Nothing goes to waste," Mr. Zhong commented. "It's a sustainable and highly profitable business model." My mind was buzzing with possibilities. Do you think it could work with American rattlesnakes? Absolutely. Rattlesnake venom is highly valued in medical research, the skin is distinctive, and there's a market for the meat. More importantly, you already have the key asset, an abundant population of snakes. At dinner, Mr. Zhong presented financial projections and US contacts who could help set up a similar business. You'd need some initial investment for proper infrastructure and specialized training. I don't have that capital, I admitted. But you have the main asset, the snakes and the land, Lily intervened. We can set up a partnership. Our company will provide the initial investment and technical know-how, and you contribute the property and manage the operation. Over the next 2 weeks, I dove into learning about the safe handling of venomous snakes, extraction techniques, and the business aspects of the industry. We visited pharmaceutical labs that bought venom, factories that produced luxury goods from skins, and more specialized restaurants. Before heading back to the US, we signed a partnership agreement. The Zhong family's initial investment would cover proper facilities, safety equipment, specialized training, and the necessary certifications. Back at the farm, everything happened quickly. Experts came in to survey the snake populations and plan the facilities. Builders transformed the abandoned barn into a modern extraction center with strict safety standards. I hired local workers, who underwent intensive training with Chinese experts. In 6 months, Rattlesnake Ridge Ventures was officially up and running. We started with venom extraction, selling it to pharmaceutical labs at amazing prices. Soon, we expanded into controlled skin production, earning ethical management certifications that boosted its value in the luxury market. As the business grew, I added elements that reflected my own vision. We created an educational center where visitors could learn about snakes, their ecological role, and their medical importance. We established partnerships with universities for research on bioactive compounds in venom. We even developed a small line of derivative products, everything from anti-aging creams containing proteins inspired by the venom to educational souvenirs. The irony didn't escape me, the useless land my family wanted me to sell was turning into the foundation of a life I'd never imagined possible. The supposed curse of the property turned out to be its greatest blessing. Lily was constantly traveling between China and the US, bringing more expertise and expanding our business connections. Our professional partnership blossomed alongside our personal relationship. She saw value where others only saw danger, both in the farm and in me. On the first anniversary of the company, we organized an event for investors and partners. The farm was unrecognizable, modern facilities blended harmoniously with the rural landscape, specialized staff moved about confidently, and the Rattlesnake Ridge brand was beginning to gain recognition in the pharmaceutical and luxury product sector. A reporter from the local newspaper covered the event, resulting in a front-page story about the unlikely success story of the snake farm. 2 weeks later, while I was reviewing expansion plans with our team, I received an unexpected visit. My dad, my mom, and Ethan were standing in the farm's parking lot, watching the movement of staff and transport trucks with shocked expressions. I immediately recognized Ethan's Jeep, now with a few years under its belt and dusty from the rural road. For a moment, I was frozen, a whirlwind of emotions taking over me. Lily, who was going over documents next to me, noticed my tension. "They're here, aren't they?" she asked softly, squeezing my hand. I took a deep breath and walked toward the past I'd left behind. My dad tried to hide his shock with an artificial smile. My mom looked embarrassed, and Ethan was examining everything with a mix of curiosity and barely concealed envy. "Son," my dad stepped forward, opening his arms as if the last 2 years of silence had never happened. "We saw the story in the paper. Why didn't you tell us about all this?" I kept my distance, not returning the gesture. You made it clear you didn't want anything to do with me when I chose not to sell this farm. We were a family going through hard times, my mom interjected in her overly conciliatory tone. Ethan needed help with college, and we never imagined you'd do all this. Ethan looked around one of the renovated barns, where workers in protective gear were handling special boxes for transporting venom. So it's true? You're really making money with those snakes? A lot, Lily answered, stepping closer and introducing herself politely. My parents tried to hide their surprise when they realized who she was. Her elegant, confident presence was completely at odds with the image of the failed son they had of me. I offered a limited tour of the external facilities, superficially explaining how the business worked. My dad nodded continuously, as if he had always believed in its potential. My mom made comments about how she always knew I'd bounce back. Ethan remained uncharacteristically silent, his calculating eyes assessing every detail. Inside the administrative center, we had coffee while my dad finally revealed the real reason for the visit. We're proud of you, son. Really proud, he began, leaning forward. And we've been thinking. We are family, after all. Ethan just finished his MBA, you know? He could bring valuable knowledge to the business. MBA? I repeated, recalling the expensive university my parents had paid for him while I was working double shifts. Business strategy and marketing, Ethan confirmed in his familiar condescending tone. I noticed some flaws in your business model that we could optimize. With my education and your resources, we could expand this significantly. My mom smiled excitedly. It would be perfect. Your dad could help with the administrative part, I could handle public relations, and Ethan would bring the strategic vision. I looked at Lily, who maintained a neutral expression, but I noticed a slight raise of her eyebrow that showed her discomfort. I turned back to my family, realizing how they were still the same dynamics, just adapted to the new circumstances. Let me get this straight, I said calmly. When I inherited a seemingly useless farm, you kicked me out of the house for not selling it to benefit Ethan. Now that I turned that same property into a profitable business, you want to be a part of it. My dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. The past is the past. We're talking about the future of the family now. Family? I repeated. The same family that told me I no longer belonged in your home? The same family that never believed in or supported me? You're being dramatic, Ethan interrupted. Everyone makes mistakes. We're offering a chance to bring the family back together. Lily intervened gently. Maybe you should know that Rattlesnake Ridge already has a complete administrative structure with experts in every area. The company also has international investors and specific partnership agreements. My dad frowned. Investors? You sold parts of the business to outsiders when you could have kept it in the family? They're not outsiders, I replied. They're partners who believed in me when no one else did. People who saw value in what I could build, not just in what they could take from me. I stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Thanks for coming, but there's no room for you in this business. This company is the result of my hard work and of the people who believed in my vision, something you never did. You can't be serious, my mom protested. We're your family. Family goes beyond blood, I answered. It's about respect, support, and believing in each other. You failed at that repeatedly. I walked with them to the parking lot in tense silence. When we reached their cars, my dad made one last attempt. You're going to regret this. Family is all we have in the end. I looked out over the complex we'd built, at the staff who trusted our leadership, and finally at Lily, watching from a distance. I have everything I need now. And I built it without your help. As their cars disappeared down the dirt road, I felt an enormous weight lift from my shoulders. Lily came over, interlacing her fingers with mine. Are you okay? Better than I expected, I answered honestly. I needed this closure. That night, sitting on the renovated porch that once belonged to Uncle Jack, Lily presented an idea that would change our course once again. My dad is thinking about retiring from the Chinese operation. How about we officially expand into Asia with you supervising both operations? The suggestion evolved into something even more significant when, 3 months later, I asked Lily to marry me during a trip to Shanghai. Our wedding brought together not only 2 people, but 2 cultures and 2 continents in a ceremony we celebrated in both China and the United States. In the next 5 years, we split our time between the 2 countries, expanding the business in both directions. The American operation diversified into advanced biomedical research, establishing partnerships with universities and pharmaceutical labs. In China, we modernized the existing facilities and set up a conservation center for endangered snake species. We built a modern house on the farm, preserving elements of the original structure as a tribute to Uncle Jack. The main office was decorated with a photo of him, reminding me daily of the unexpected inheritance that transformed my life. The birth of our daughter, Mylin, brought a new dimension to our existence. She would grow up between 2 cultures, fluent in 2 languages, and heir to a legacy built on turning hardship into opportunity. Often, when she was tucked in for bed, she'd tell stories about a great uncle she never met, whose gift changed our family's fate. On a quiet summer afternoon, while we watched Mylin play in the garden under the watchful eye of her nanny, Lily mentioned something about a letter they'd received. An invitation arrived for the medical school graduation of Ethan's son, she said casually. Apparently, your brother eventually got married and had a son who's now graduating as a doctor. I picked up the envelope, surprised that they had my current address. Inside was a formal card and a handwritten note from my nephew explaining that although we'd never met, he'd always heard stories about the entrepreneurial uncle who turned a snake farm into an empire. He expressed admiration and a desire to finally meet me. "What are you going to do?" asked Lily. I considered the note for a moment. "I'm going to the graduation. A son shouldn't have to pay for his father's mistakes." At the event, I sat quietly at the back of the auditorium. When my nephew walked across the stage to receive his diploma, I clapped with genuine pride. After the ceremony, amidst a crowd of teary-eyed family members, I caught sight of Ethan, now with graying hair and a less imposing posture. Our eyes met briefly. There was no dramatic confrontation or grand reconciliation, just a nod of mutual recognition before we went our separate ways. Some stories don't need a perfect ending to be complete. Back at the farm, sitting on the porch with Lily and our daughter, I reflected on the extraordinary journey of the last few years. The property my family once considered useless had become the foundation of a life I'd never thought possible. In the end, I guess I should thank them, I remarked to Lily as we watched the sunset over the fields. If they'd supported me, if they'd sold the land as they wanted, we'd never have built all this. Lily smiled, as wise as ever. Sometimes what appears to be our biggest problem ends up being our biggest opportunity. You just have to look at it the right way. Mylin ran up to us, carefully holding a small educational terrarium in which we kept a young rattlesnake for demonstration purposes. "Daddy, my teacher wants me to bring sunshine for the school presentation day." I smiled at my daughter, who was growing up unafraid of what others feared, learning early on to see value where others saw only danger, maybe the most valuable legacy we could leave behind. "Of course you can, as long as your mom or I am there to supervise," I replied, watching how she looked at the creature that had changed our family's fate. The farm that was meant to be sold had become the epicenter of a life rich in purpose, international connections, and innovation. The snakes that were once seen as a danger turned into symbols of transformation and untapped possibilities. And I, who was once seen as the son with no future, had found my way not despite adversity but through it, just like the snakes we now protected, adaptable, resilient, and fundamentally transformative.